Hello everybody, my name is the Critical Wizard, and welcome back to another segment of Critical Critiques. Today, I'm going to be comparing the difference in a parent company. And by what I mean by that is you have the two feuding comic book companies, DC and Marvel, and then you have their parent companies that bring them into the cinematic universe, Warner Brothers and Disney. And I'm going to be comparing the two of them today and how having their parent company has influenced their impact on the cinematic universe. You have the two companies. You have DC, which is owned by Warner Brothers, and you have Marvel, which is owned by Disney. And as many of you know, DC has traditionally not done very well with movies in the past. Now, this isn't always the case. There are some Marvel superheroes that are having the same problem DC has. They can never get a movie that seems to work. But that's not necessarily Disney's fault. Some of the Marvel characters, such as the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, the X-Men, they had all been sold to Fox to make movies, and to this day, Marvel is still in huge, court battles trying to buy back their characters so they can put them in their own version of the cinematic universe they had created. In fact, the Captain America 3 version of Spider-Man is the first time there has been a Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe owned by Marvel, which I'm sure a lot of you already knew. That aside, we're going to be solely focusing on the difference between a company like Disney and the difference between a company like the Warner Brothers. Now, the cinematic universe for the DC comic books has been very, very troubled in the past, and I have actually gone into this in a couple of my reviews already. So today I don't want to really focus on that, but more or less on the actual cinematic universe as a whole. The problem that you keep running into now is that DC, the way Warner Brothers wants them to go, isn't following their own comics and, getting the people who write their comics that fans really enjoy and making movies based on that, but rather getting directors that can copy Marvel's, directing techniques and trying to capture the essence of Marvel and being we need to constantly compare ourselves to Marvel instead of trying to be our own thing. And that's just Warner Brothers making poor decisions. DC has the two most well-known superheroes of all time, Superman and Batman. The third being, I believe, Spider-Man. So it's those first two characters are the most well-known and well-liked superheroes of all time, and you have both of them under your, wings, and you can't make a movie that works with those characters. That doesn't show a problem with the characters or the directors or anything. That's a problem with Warner Brothers just needing to understand what they have at their disposal. Right, that is one of the major differences between a company like Disney and a company like Warner Brothers. Disney understands what they have to utilize, and when they go from making, say, a comic book to making a movie, they stay in-house. They don't go to a random director and is hey, you want to direct our movie? We heard you do movies. No, they go to the people who wrote the comics and it's hey, what do you think it would take to adapt this comic into a screenplay? And then from there, if the comic book writer isn't a director, you hire a director from in-house who's already done several successful films, and you use the comic books writer's screenplay with the really good director you already know is good, and you get the casting all right, and you go from there. That is why when Star Wars was bought by Disney, I wasn't afraid. I knew Star Wars Episodes 7, 8, and 9 are going to be good because Disney produces good films. Whether or not you like all of Disney's films is kind of irrelevant because even if you don't like most of what Disney puts out, there's always at least one film that you can find and be like, I don't necessarily like this, but I can definitely appreciate the work that went into this film. When you hear Warner Brothers, you kind of are like, oh, what did they do again? Because it's like, yes, you see their name on everything, but it doesn't really translate to the same, like, memories you have with Disney. Because Warner Brothers is always kind of trailed behind in the whole making movies and making other media that really sticks with you. And it's because, as my father puts it, they're hapless. They have no idea what they're doing. Obviously, that's not true. They are a pretty big company. If they had no idea what they were doing, they would have gone bankrupt years ago. But the point is, they don't know what they're doing in the sense that they're not being themselves. They're trying to copy other people's media instead of creating their own. When you compare the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that is just at this point probably become a little too big and threatens to have a breaking point eventually. And then you have the DC Cinematic Universe that can't even get off the ground because it's trying to do this whole gritty reboot of all the characters, making all of them Batman, trying to copy both the Christopher Nolan films, but also capture the style and creativity of, say, the Avengers, or any of the Marvel Cinematic movies. It's like, we're going to make our characters super realistic, like Tony Stark was in the first Iron Man, or like Captain America became, but we're also going to do super dark and gritty, like Christopher Nolan's Batman. They have to be realistic and super depressed and gritty all the time. And then you just, hire Zack Snyder and blow up a couple of buildings, and there you go, DC Cinematic Universe coming at you. But of course, all of this is just my opinion. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. If you have the same opinion, I'd still love to hear about it, Love to talk to you guys. But thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, leave a like to let me know. And if not, that's alright, and I'll see you guys in the next part. Bye!